I had doubt for years. Doing videography work, I traveled with some, top, entrepreneurs in San Diego. And for years, they've been telling me, you're going to have to jump off that cliff one day. You got to just leave everything behind and take that risk. But I was like, no, that's too scary. I've always had a corporate job. Like, I always had a check knowing I got a check coming every 2 weeks. I always had insurance, and that's scary. Like, I don't know if I'm built for that. I don't know if I'm, ready to take on something like that. And I think just the universe connecting all these pieces together with, the cafe. I mean, it's below my house. Like, it's below where I live. Like, if that's not the universe speaking to you, what else is speaking to you? I think all those things combined left me with a no choice. If there's a time you're gonna jump now.
Welcome back to the Yogi Triathlete Podcast. I'm Jess, your host, and along with my co-host BJ, we are on a mission to create a better world. We are waking up and shaking up the world of endurance sports by bringing you guys out-of-the-box guests every week. People who are making lifestyle changes, taking huge risk, and feeling the fruits of their efforts. Today we've got Todd Anderson, aka Turnip Vegan, with us, co-founder of Spoiled Vegans Cafe.
Yes.
All right. Content creator and vegan foodie. This guy is always making my mouth water with his videos. And we're psyched to be sitting down with the esteemed Turnip Vegan. Todd, welcome to the show. We're psyched to be here with you.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to be here. And like I mentioned when we first sat down, it's kind of strange being on this side. I'm a videographer by nature. And so I film tons of podcasts. And so yeah, it feels a little different to be here, but I'm excited to be here, and thank you for, choosing me to come for your next podcast.
Just sit back and relax. We're going to go for a little ride.
Let's go.
We're all about the up level. We're all about living at higher states of consciousness and awareness, which is so tied into, the vegan movement. But I caught wind in one of your videos about the meaning behind Turnip Vegan. And so will you share that with us?
Yeah, it's, I went vegan almost 3 years ago. So this November will be 3 years for me. And when I first went vegan, it was like, all right, cool. I had so many people asking questions about what did we eat? What's the lifestyle like? And, coming from my point of view, I feel like I could bring a little different twist to veganism where, some people that may not had interest or felt like they couldn't connect with veganism, maybe I could help bridge that connection. And so I try to be hip, and
I think you're doing a pretty good job.
I try to be a little hip, and turn up is like at that time, like there were some songs that were like turn up for what, and all these cool little songs, whatever. And so I was like, what if I twist that a little bit and use turn up more, TURNIP, to represent the plant-based lifestyle, but also to kind of use that as a double sword to say, hey, you could turn up with your health, you could turn up with your knowledge, turn up and all the things that you're excited about in life. And so that's how it was kind of born. And, I didn't think too much of it when it happened. And, 6 months down the line, I'm like, that was a pretty cool name. I got to say, that was a pretty cool name on the fly.
Does it keep you accountable?
It always keeps me accountable. Going vegan, was something different for me because, I feel like I tried a lot of things in my life and I never stuck to them. We got these diets that we do and all these fast things that come up that we try and then move on to the next. And so Turnip Vegan kept me grounded because I decided from the day I went vegan that I would never cheat. And so the day I went vegan, I never purposely, ate any, anything besides plants. And so it did keep me accountable and just always kept it in the forefront of what I represent and what I stand for.
So tell us the story about what life. Let's talk about what life looked like prior to turning vegan. What was life like there?
So
you're like laughing at it, right? Like it was a joke.
Yeah, most of my friends look at me now. They're like, "What happened to you?" But I look back at them like, "What has not happened to you?" And so before I went vegan, I always been an athlete. I played basketball, but I was very outgoing, still outgoing, but I partied a lot. And so long story short, I went with some friends to Vegas for a weekend, and we just had a long weekend of just having a good time, good fun. And there was something inside of me already kind of starting to grow, and I just didn't know what it was. And So we get back home from this crazy weekend, and I don't feel good. I had a hangover the next day, and then I had a hangover the next day. And then the third day, I still was kind of barely getting out of this hangover. And so I knew something was changing in my body. And of course, I'm getting older. All the abuse I've done to my body over the years, like I said, okay, let me just research something and see what I could do to try to be better and healthier. So I look up documentaries on Netflix, the typical story, but I was not looking for veganism. I was just looking for a healthier way of eating. And I found Food Choices. It sounds very directed towards food and not veganism. And so I start this documentary and just don't make no connection. And then there was one line where they said that, hey, we're the only species that drink milk from another species. And it was like, boom, like this big weight just dropped in my mind. And I was just like, okay, this is weird. This is strange. Like, how I never seen this before in my life. Like, how did I miss this? And so that led me towards, that was the door and the connection that opened up veganism for me. And so it's interesting when I meet people and I interview people, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that moment. I'm looking for that connection that you had, because that was what it was for me. And so anytime that you reach into that connection, it reminds me of why I went vegan. And so that was it. It opened up the door, and I didn't necessarily go vegan for animals nor any other reason, but bettering myself. And that just started this snowball effect of just, looking more into veganism. And now I'm the person I am, and I'm more compassionate towards animals, more compassionate towards people. I think what really kept me vegan, because the initial, part of it was, feeling good and, it changed my body and everything. And 6 months down the line, I'm like, I think I really went vegan because I hate being lied to. And I start seeing all these lies that was, conditioned to me and, my family and all of us. And so, yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to drag on too much, but
no,
but
that's it's great how the story, because you're speaking it out, like you're feeling into it. And what I see there was you took ownership of your health. Like
yes.
You were like, enough of this misinformation.
Yes.
And we're just fed this information because it's safe, and we need to sift through some of that stuff.
Right.
How long did it take you to feel good? When you saw that documentary, then you started to eat, like, when did you start to feel good coming off a 3-day hangover?
Well, I would say right away. So I always worked out. Like, I can't think of a time in my life I haven't worked out. I played college basketball, and I think that just conditioned me to always want to work out. But there was a layer of fat that I could not shake on my stomach. And like in a week or so, it like started going down. And I think that was like the initial just like, high, just like, wow, I'm actually losing some fat that I couldn't lose. And so that happened. And, I was working for Grand Canyon University at the time, admissions counselor, where I recruited from Chula Vista, but I would fly the students to Phoenix. And so I was always on the road. And so it was very challenging at that point, going vegan and not understanding what to eat, and then being on the road. And so, it was just, feeling better, but at the same time, just, it was a challenge for me to learn how to eat differently. And I think that made me feel good inside, because I was like, all right, I'm challenging everything I've ever done in my life. We've been eating, I've been eating a certain way since birth. I come from Chicago. Like, we lived on farms and, suburbs of Chicago where there was farms, and like we would, have pigs and all that stuff on, my family's, farm. And so, it just like, it really just challenged me, and it felt good knowing that I could change one thing about my life that I've done forever, and I could change everything else. And so,
it really challenged your identity.
It
who
did.
You thought you were.
Of course.
So for our listeners who are looking to transition like that, it's almost like you can almost look at it as an attack on yourself and your identity. And you can either do what you did and embrace it and get curious about it, or you can see it as painful and fear because you don't know who you are. Did this open up something even bigger, like bigger inside of who you truly are?
Yeah, it's just, I look back at myself and I'm not ashamed, but seeing who I was before and who I am today, like it just brings joy to me. Like, I was so pulled into material things, shoes, Jordans, coming from Chicago. Like, we used to spend, I didn't have money, but I would spend what I did have on shoes. And like, it was all these material things that really defined me at that time. And when I went vegan, I was like, okay, I can't buy no more leather shoes. I can't buy no more of these things. And so it slowly just freed me from like these things that held me down. And now I live this life where, you know, I know we're getting to the cafe, but having, you know, to be able to supply food, and it's a different joy now. You know, I get, you know, fueled by other things that are not material. So.
You've talked about this freedom before, like how this change has given you freedom, and it's like it's given you freedom from this attachment to material things. Where else have you felt freedom in your life? Because, I mean, this is crazy. Like, you change the way you eat, which is basically all you're doing is you're still eating food. It's nothing special about vegan food,
Correct.
except for that it's amazing, but it's still food, right?
Yeah.
It's food that's available, and it's giving you freedom.
Correct.
So where else have you felt that freedom in your life?
Well, I feel like all of us, like we always, you know, look at ourselves in the mirror and we want to be someone that we're maybe not, you know, and I just get this freedom of just being okay, being myself, and this freedom of not having to stress over this diet. Like I, you know, was conditioned from playing basketball. Coaches would, you know, give us whey protein from 16 years old. I've been drinking whey protein up until 3 years ago. And I only drank it because I felt like I needed this protein in order to maintain the size. And so it was nothing more than just, I don't care about the taste. I don't care about anything else, but I just wanted to keep the size. And so now I know I don't need that whey protein. You know, I take pea protein, but sometimes I don't even take no protein. You know, it's just freed me up from having to eat a certain way or live a certain way just to be who I am.
So you're on this path of fueled by plants.
Yes.
What does the family think? What does your close community think? Was there resistance?
Of course. I chose to go vegan during the worst time of year, November.
Thanksgiving. Oh my God.
The worst time of year, and then December's right around the corner. But when I decided, I didn't think about none of that. And then, you know, Thanksgiving comes, and I go to my family's house, and I already know that there's nothing there that I will be able to eat. Rice has, you know, animal products. Our beans has bacon in it. Greens that my family make, all the soul food that we make, none of it is anything that I could eat personally. And so it was very challenging going to my parents' house and them looking at me different and thinking that, you know, I know they probably have feelings of, you know, is he brainwashed? Is he, you know, join a cult? You know, like what's going on? Like why all of a sudden you stop eating the things that we raised you on and what defines your culture? And so that first Thanksgiving, I cooked some vegan food and took it over, you know, to my parents' house, and they all smiled and, you know, made me feel good about it. They tried some of it, but I could tell they really didn't, you know, eat too much of it. And I found out a couple years later, they hated the food. You know, they didn't tell me right then. So they're very sweet and kind to me, not to hurt my feelings during that time. But I'm still working on them. Like we started doing a cafe 2 months ago, and my mom came in. She's been in 3 times since. And she comes in and tries our omelet and loves the omelet, goes on Facebook and start posting, sharing with the rest of my family. And so they all see it, and they slowly start coming in one by one. And before I went vegan, which was interesting, is 5 years ago, I was dating someone, almost 6 years ago, I was dating someone that tried to go vegan. Like she, you know, started to cook vegan food. I would come home and I'd be like, what are you making? Like, what is this? You know, but then I didn't want to hurt her feelings, so I tried the food, and I was like, you know what, this is actually, you know, this is good. I could do this, and that was planting the seed for me. And so 3 years later, or 2 years later, when I decided to do it, that seed was planted. So I knew I could do it because I tried it before. And so that's all I try to do with my family and friends is plant that seed. And, you know, when their time comes, maybe that'll be the same, you know, motivation or you know, help them realize that they can do it too. And so, yeah, my family still not vegan. I have a son that's 18 years old. I'm still can't get him on board. He tries the food, he likes it, but, you know, I just feel like I'm planting these seeds. One day they will blossom.
We're all on our own path, right? And so he will eventually get to it, and he will own it. When it comes to it, he'll own it. And it's such a struggle. I just came back from seeing my family, and, you know, there's no changes. Mm-hmm. And I was that person at first that was like, no, you got to buy, like, you got to get this stuff. Like, this is and it became like almost like a battle.
Right.
But when I began to just let go, I revisited, I think, a little while afterwards, and they were buying cage-free eggs, and they were buying more salad. So they were making conscious efforts. But I feel like we can put our agenda on people. So I think your son will eventually just continue to do what you do. I want to talk about the basketball, though. Like, so you're in a college program.
Yes.
The food there, do you recall the food and what was the setup? Because I assume right now you would definitely eat differently.
Of course.
Than what was in the college program.
Of course. You know,
or what was the nutrition
for college athletes? You know, looking back on it, I could have probably been a way better player if I wasn't eating Taco Bell and you know, Jack in the Box and these type of things. Like, we really didn't, like, our coaches in school really didn't enforce or incorporate any nutritional value to us besides the protein shake. So all they would give us is a protein shake after practice with creatine in it. And that was the only nutrition that they ever given us. And I think that was more just so we can be a better athlete. And I think they were they had a misunderstanding of what nutrition is as well. But that was the first time I had it. And so I'm getting, you know, we're getting done with practice, these hard workouts, and our coaches embedded in us, we have to have protein 30 minutes after working out. And so we'll come into the locker rooms, and I didn't see fights break out over who's going to get the most protein shake, you know. This is a true story. Like, I've seen some of the craziest things over protein shakes, and so this is embedded in my head. So when I get, you know, out of college, like, I continue the same pattern of buying so much protein, expensive protein, and now look at some of these things and some of the ingredients and some of the, you know, how much was I really damaging myself than really helping? And so college, I'm happy to see that this generation, my niece plays in San Diego. She's real good in basketball, and her coach is vegan, you know, and she went vegan. And so out of all my family, my niece is the only one that went vegan. She's actually in town visiting right now. We took her around yesterday for a few places to try vegan food, and she's actually moved to Tennessee at the beginning of this year to play with this real good basketball team that should help her get to a higher level. But yeah, she came and told me yesterday that her coach was vegan. And I was like, how do the rest of your players do? They make fun of the coach. And but me knowing that that's the beginning, like having someone that is a coach that is on that level, that is vegan. Maybe they don't hear you now, but they will hear you at one point. So I'm very proud of this next generation that's coming up, and I do know we're making an impact.
Yeah, I think they have a really acute bullshit meter.
Yes.
They really, really do, and
yes.
They're curious, and curiosity is really a muscle we wanna keep going. You know, like push the boundaries.
Yes.
Be curious about everything, about the words you use, the thoughts you indulge, the food that you eat, all of that stuff. So you had mentioned, like, you know, you felt like you had been lied to.
Yes.
Right? And totally been there. I had a very similar aha moment as you. And I believe it was Gene Bauer, who is the co-founder of Farm Sanctuary. Mm-hmm. And I heard him say that we're the only species to drink another species' secretion. And I almost threw up. And I thought that is so disgusting.
If that don't encourage you to go vegan, what does?
I was like horrified. And I was a huge cheese addict. I'm eating secretion. Like, what? Oh my gosh. So anyway, what do you think is the biggest lie out there? What do you think is the biggest perpetuated just falsity of, you know, misinformation that people are literally eating up every day?
Well, there's so many. The one that really connected with me was the Got Milk commercials, because I remember being a young kid and seeing these commercials, and then we'll go to school. I was always on free lunch, and so we had options for, you know, chocolate milk or regular milk, and I used to load up. You know, anybody that didn't want their milk, I'm sorry, I need my milk. Got milk, I need calcium, I need all these different reasons. That was the first one that hit me. I saw something on YouTube on how, you know, the government was funding some of these commercials, and it's business first before health, and that really fueled me. I was very upset about that, because I feel like I grew up as a person that, I grew up in these certain areas where, you know, it's tough to get out of, or, you know, areas where, you know, healthy, you know, nutritional ways are just not heard of. And so I know I come from this area, but I've always been the type of person that, like, I wanted to grow. or always want to do the right thing. And so if you tell me something and scientist says this is the right thing to do, then I would follow it. And that's just who I am. You know, I've always been that type of person. And that hurt me. You know, that hurt me a lot, knowing that, okay, you followed and you tried to do what society says is right, and a lot of it was wrong. And so I think that was like the biggest thing to me. And then following that was the protein, just how much, to be a person or, be an athlete or be, gain muscle, that I needed to take in all this protein. And so I'd say those were the first two real big lies that started. And then I started looking into more like, all right, why a salad costs more than this burger I can get from McDonald's for $1? I can go get a combo for $3 and I can't get a salad for, for $10. And just those manipulating things just really threw me off. And that was what kept me vegan, and I would never go back. And I meet a lot of people that, went vegan for 2-3 years and then, went back and they was, hey man, I went vegan for 2 years. It was cool. It was cool. What happened? Like, what was your reason why you went vegan? Like, obviously it wasn't strong enough, or you didn't believe in what really, pushed you that direction. So yeah, those lies are just what really, motivates me and still motivates me to this day.
Dr. Will Tuttle has a beautiful book called The World Peace Diet. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but BJ and I had the honor of listening to him talk 1 year up in Ithaca, New York, and he's talking about when you realize, like when you pull the blinds up and you realize like getting calcium from milk is pretty much the worst thing that I can do, that it doesn't help my bones at all. As a matter of fact, there's plenty of scientific research around the fact that it weakens your bones. And he says, so we're all going to get to this point where we're angry and we're pissed, at ourselves for what we've done and for the information that we've bought into. And he's like, and all I can say is just like, you're not alone.
Right.
We've all been there. We all did what we thought was right. We all did what we thought was right for our health and for the planet and for the animals. And we're so shielded from the truth. But I feel like once you turn that light on, you can't turn that light off.
I can't. It's impossible to turn it off. And, as time, moves forward, like one thing I told myself is I always have to kind of keep the mentality, or not keep the mentality, but remember where I was before. Because if you would approach me on veganism 4 or 5 years ago, I may have laughed at who I am today. Like I may have took a joke towards who I am. And that's because I just was in denial and I was just in a different state and it wasn't my time to connect. And so I always try to keep that mindset I have so I don't push anyone away from that day when they make that connection. Understanding that people have different timing, and this is like you eating this way your entire life. If anything that you're going to change, and the hardest thing you're going to change, this is it. And so, yeah, I just try to keep that mentality that I had, or that mindset where I was at.
Because it's not just a diet change. It really is a lifestyle change. It will, people will fall away from your life because of it. And in that Food Choices movie, the gentleman who's kind of like, I got curious, and I wanted to go out and find out what was going on. And he talks about after so many years of a yo-yo diet, he's like, I decided to change my lifestyle and start incorporating more plants. And it's really interesting how he kind of separates dieting from incorporating more plants as a lifestyle change.
Yes.
And it really is. It's a complete lifestyle change because it's a life that lives against the grain of what is the norm. And I'd like to think that it's shifting, and I do think that these younger generations that are coming in, I mean, we know so many people who are plant-based who are now about to give birth to plant-based babies,
Yes.
And it's just, it's so beautiful. And I really do believe, we have to believe, I really think we have to believe that the tides are turning. Did you feel any emotional shifting from removing the animals from your, I'm thinking about this freedom thing, right? And when we're eating the flesh of animals that are not free.
Right.
They're not free. I don't care if it's free range. The end result is still the same.
Yes.
That there's fear, that there's anxiety. And did you feel any of those kind of benefits of moving away from ingesting that type of stuff? Because when you think about it, what we put in us, it becomes us.
Yes. Well, I've never been a very depressed person or a person that, very emotional. Like I feel like I always was balanced with my emotions. So I don't know if I really felt the difference, but it did help me understand a lot of simple stuff. Like when we're in flight mode, like we release these endorphins and what makes animals different, and so I've really just understood the concept of like, all right, so what you're putting into your body is what you put out. And so if I'm putting something in my body that went through a lot of fear and has all these chemicals and things running through their body, and I'm taking it in, is that coming out in a certain way too? So I started to understand that basic concept without being a scientist, and also just knowing that, for example, I have a lot of friends that do yoga, a lot of friends, and I'm actually going to do my first class this Monday coming up.
Well, this is a good precursor, being on the Yogi Triathlete podcast.
Amen to that.
It's in your awareness, dude. Roll out the mat.
And it's something I've been putting off for about a year, and not because I don't want to do it. Just, I feel like it's one of those things, once you do it one time, you're going to be addicted. But one thing I couldn't understand, because I have family members that are into yoga real big, but they eat meat. And I'm like, okay, so yoga is very spiritual. I don't understand that concept of, being into yoga, but then putting things into my body that could go against me having a free spirit. As I get into yoga, I think it's the best time for me to do it, knowing that I am eating different and not having that type of concept going on too. So,
yeah, it's the ahimsa, so no harm to anything. And so, so going to a yoga class puts you in a room, and it's okay to do yoga in there, right? And then they can leave and go back to real life.
Yes.
But what we really like to focus on is like we're doing yoga right every second of the day. Like we're living this passion, this calmness, this awareness, and bridging that gap between the yoga studio and taking, I know it's cliche, taking the yoga practice off the mat into life. And we like to talk in our yoga classes, because we're both teachers, you put you in a warrior 2 pose, and this is great, and it looks really good. But when shit gets real outside, are you going to bust out a yoga pose, or are you going to come back to your breath and calmness and clarity of your mind and be able to see that outside perspective? And I think that's what really takes the yoga to a new level. But I can feel you, like being an athlete, like I play basketball, soccer, all this stuff. The physical movement in yoga connected with the breath and consciousness and calmness and clarity of the mind is like extremely powerful. So you are going to get addicted.
I'm so excited. I just told my girlfriend yesterday, because we skipped out of the last 2 classes. I said, I don't care what happens this Monday, we're going to be in yoga. It's funny too, like last week I got reached out to a good friend of mine. Hey, you want to model for, and he does a lot of videography for me. So I'm like, cool, I'll do it. And I get there and it's this yoga shoot.
The signs.
Right. And so I got a free pair of my first yoga pants for doing the shoot. But I just walked in. I felt out of place a little bit just because I'd never done yoga before. But before I left, I kind of picked up a few moves. And I'm just like, the universe is just talking to me in so many ways. I think it's time,
Dude, you're a yoga model.
Hey.
You need to learn the poses.
Hey, if the universe say that's what I'm going to be, that's what I'm going to be. Let's go.
So talking about the universe and how it lines things up for us, tell us how did you ever think that you were going to be owning a cafe, like a vegan cafe? Think like 20 years ago.
No, not at all. I have a bachelor's degree in computer science. I have a master's degree in health information technology. I've done music my whole life, so I'm very good with like Pro Tools, editing, and so that kind of carried over to me doing videography. I quit my job as a counselor June 1st.
Of this year?
Of this year. And wonderful job. Like, I feel like I was giving back in a certain way, but not the way that I want to. No, like the concept of the cafe came up in March this year, and it was just kind of a seed planted. So I had a clothing company called Spoiled Vegans. We had it for about a year and a half. We did a lot of traveling, a lot of video work. So we went to Costa Rica, Hong Kong, Brazil. And so this was like good experience. Veganism actually opened this door up for me to do all this traveling and push me to push myself. Like I jumped off a 160-foot cliff, like things I would have never done before. Going vegan, like pushed me to do these other things. And so where was I at with I kind of fell back on, but
I'm kind of stuck on the 160
Yeah.
foot cliff. Like we're talking about the cafe, but let's talk about the cliff because that is such a metaphor for life. Yeah. When did you get an opportunity to jump off a cliff?
We went to Costa Rica last May, and it was cool. It's this documentary I filmed I never put out. It was 4 vegans and 3 non-vegans, and I wanted to put them all together and see what happens. And so I have this full documentary I filmed, but we never put it out. I just put like clips and things out here and there. So we get there, and I was like, I want to do some things I would never do. I'm not going to skydive, though, but that's a little too far. But there's a 160-foot cliff that they had, and one of the attractions, and so it's a waterfall that I think it's called Rappel, where you rappel down.
Oh yeah, rappel down.
Rappel down. I'm sorry. And so we get there, and I'm like, let's do it. And I'm just pumping myself up. I got this. I'm gonna do this. And my friend gets to the edge, and jumps. I see him jump. I turn around like, I'm sorry, guys, I can't do this. Black people don't do this stuff right here. I'm kidding. I'm so kidding. But I was just like, I tried to bail out.
You were pulling at any excuse you had.
Yeah, any excuse I had, I could pull out.
Like it's my heritage.
Yeah, I can't do this. And they were like, no, you got to do this. No way going back. But anyway, I remember just grabbing a rope and just trusting life and just trusting the experience and trusting where I'm at right now. Like I had no plans on being here. And so, yeah, it was an incredible experience. I just let go and made it all the way to the bottom. Once I got to the bottom, I had this feeling that I never had before. It was like I challenged myself. I pushed myself. It was this endorphin running through my body that was addicting, and it kind of led on to doing some other things. But, yeah, that was, if I didn't go vegan, I'm sure that would have never happened. Yeah, I had no intentions on doing a cafe. So I had a clothing company called Spoiled Vegans. And so I gave a few shirts to a few non-vegans. And they were like, hey, can I wear this? Like, it says Spoiled Vegans on it. And I was like, oh, yeah, you can wear it. You don't have to be vegan to wear this. But I walked away from that like, is that being inclusive where, like, giving this to them, is that pushing that? Is it pushing my values on them or making them feel uncomfortable? So I switched it to chickpeas and turnip vegan, chickpeas and turnip, just kind of play on words. And that's more plant-based, more fun. And so I noticed with chickpeas and turnip, people ask me all the time, oh, what does that mean? Is it plant-based or is it vegan? And so now that's the clothing company. So I had Spoiled Vegans, and I just put it to the side. And a friend was like, hey, you should do a cafe. And I'm like, no, I'm not into, the restaurant industry. I know it's tough, difficult.
I got a safe job. I'm making a difference in the world.
I'm doing good.
I don't need to jump out. I already jumped off a cliff.
Mm-hmm. So I moved downtown. I live right here in Schiff. And every day we would wake up to get food, or we'd be in these offices working, and we realized that, hey, we have to travel out of downtown. We have to use Grubhub or, Uber Eats to get food. And I realized downtown has not one 100% vegan option. And that's shocking to me, especially San Diego being such a strong city when it comes to veganism. We have Cafe Gratitude, which is vegetarian, and we have Kindred, and that's it downtown. So I come downstairs to a coffee shop right below us, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to meet with some investors. I'm going to talk about doing something. I don't know what. And the guy was like, well, we just had a talk the day before about adding a cafe here. And I was like, I'm vegan, right? He's like, yeah, we're thinking vegan too. And so that little conversation sparked me coming back to this office. And within 2 weeks, we came up with the logo, with the concept of doing waffles. We wanted something that was traditional. And you think about it too, there's not too many places you could find a traditional plant-based breakfast anywhere. From LA to San Diego, that's all they specialize in. And so we came up with our concept. A few weeks later, we opened up and did our first pop-up. It was only going to be one here and one there. And our first weekend, their numbers went from 10 people coming in to 60 people. The next week, it went to 100 people. And from there, it was like, hey, this is something good. Let's pursue this full time. And so quit my job. And, 3 months later, we're here working on, getting our own location and, possibly collaborating with some other brands in San Diego to expand.
Dude, the path is just being laid out for you. So amazing because you're open to it. But when you quit your job, was there any doubt there? Was there fear there? Was there any I
had doubt for years. Doing videography work, I traveled with some, top, entrepreneurs in San Diego. And for years, they've been telling me, you're going to have to jump off that cliff one day. You got to just leave everything behind and take that risk. But I was like, no, that's too scary. I've always had a corporate job. Like I always had a check knowing I got a check coming every 2 weeks. I always had insurance, and that's scary. Like, I don't know if I'm built for that. I don't know if I'm, ready to take on something like that. And I think just the universe connecting all these pieces together with, the cafe. I mean, it's below my house. Like, it's below where I live. Like, if that's not the universe speaking to you, what else is speaking to you? I think all those things combined left me with no choice. If there's a time you're going to jump now. Knowing veganism is, on the rise, knowing this is my passion. I know doing a cafe, I have to put in 16 hours a day sometimes, and I knew that's coming. So if I'm going to do it, might as well do it for something I'm doing anyway. Like I would work at the university, spend 8 hours and then get off and then spend another 6 hours editing videos and going around the entire San Diego, LA, and filming videos for all these brands for free. Like I never charged anyone. Like I would come in and just film like these videos that would cost $500 to $1,000 for free. And that was another thing the universe planted for me. Because when we opened the cafe, all those people supported me, and we did our tasting. I didn't pay for no food. Everything was given to us for our tasting, and so it was just written for me to do this, and I didn't want to run from it and wanted to take on that challenge. And looking back now, I'm grateful I did it.
Yeah, you never know until you take the leap. You have to take the leap.
Just wish I did it younger.
I know, but all of those things, like, there's no effort is a waste.
Yes.
None.
Agreed.
Yeah. So what would you say? What would you say to the people that you can just see that they're paralyzed to broaden their horizon and step away from that 9 to 5? The people that they're parking their cars right around here, going into the office, stepping away. Like, what would you say to them?
Well, actions speak louder than words, and so I feel like already what we've done, I've seen maybe 3 little pop-ups start up, being inspired from us. They may have worked with us for a couple weekends, and now seeing them doing their own pop-ups. But what I see is, I feel like I play a position that's different, and we all play different positions. From my experience, what I try to do is look to see where a person's at in their phase. One young lady, she makes some of the most delicious tacos, plant-based tacos, but she's right where I'm at, where I was, where she's just afraid. She's like, I don't know where to start, how to start. And so I just been trying to help her, give her that alley-oop that someone gave me. Hey, you can use our kitchen anytime you want to. Hey, if you need our help. And so I feel like if they get all the universe keys together, then they'll feel more confident about taking the leap too. But what I would say is, this next generation gets it a little bit more than we do, because they have the tools that we didn't have. Like, to start a business nowadays, like I do all my digital designs and graphics myself. There's tools out there that make it so easy where you have to pay a company to do something like that. So what I would just say is, if you are passionate and you're not in line with the right thing that you're doing, then what can you do to help you align it? And what can you help to do yourself? What can you do to help get there sooner than later? And so me being older, I'm 43 years old, very proud of my age, but I just try to get people to see that and identify a lot sooner.
Where does trust come in? Trust that it's all going to be okay.
Looking from my background, where I come from, like I have a big family, and most of my family are still in the same place where they were 20 years ago. I just know I'm here to help people that normally don't see someone that look like me, doing something different. I have a couple cousins that went vegan after me, and I'm pretty sure I influenced them. And one of them is in Vegas, and she's starting like this thing in the community where they're starting a garden, a community garden. And with the food, once a month, they're doing these vegan events. And so I just think my position, and this may be off the question a little bit, is just to help others identify that you can do it coming from wherever you come from.
Well, I think that helps build trust.
Yes. Yeah.
And the more we take these leaps and we realize, like, hey, I'm still alive. Mm-hmm. I still have shoes. Mm-hmm. I still have a couple options for clothes. Like, I've got gas in the car. Everything's okay. And just noticing that every day, that, and especially really reeling it right into the moment that you're in, it's like, we can do scary things, but if you continue to remind yourself that right now you're fine,
right,
like right now you're okay.
And more to your question, I know I skipped off a little bit, but trust, I mean, look where I'm at now. Like, I had no decision in that. Like, I had effort I could put into it, and I had, my energy and everything I put into it, but I didn't visualize none of this. It was all put in front of me, and I was able to just grasp it and understand the value in it. And so I just trust what's going to happen next, as long as my heart is where it should be, and as long as I'm following my passion. I trust what's going to happen next is going to be beautiful.
That's such a different approach to a lot of people who need the plan and they need the proof beforehand. Do you ever have that tendency, or do you ever have people around you that are like, well, you got to start thinking about a year from now and 2 years from now? And how do you bring yourself back to I'm just letting the universe ride? Because a lot of people can't correlate with that.
You're right. I'm learning now, hard work always takes over whatever's in your way. And so it's, having trust in where I'm at today, knowing that I had no intentions on being vegan. So with the cafe, I mentioned to you guys that the Red Hat, the company that we collaborate with to get started with, they closed down 2 weeks ago. And so, right away, it was like, oh no, we just started this, crazy marketing plan. We're definitely catching a lot of hype. And right during this moment, we got to pull the rug. And so right there, for a moment, I was a little down. But the next moment I was like, hey, this is a beautiful thing. This is the universe telling us, hey, we need to think about our future now than think about it later. So I think it's more just understanding when to take control of the wheel and go in the direction that you want and follow your heart. And so now with that situation happening, I think we're going to we already put in for a location downtown, our own location where we could do it right. And at the same time, another door opened up where we may be able to operate in 3 places at one time. And so I think those obstacles, when they get in your way and things like that happen, people feel like they need a plan or don't have the right plan, when actually the plan is there. You just got to decode where to go from there. And so, yeah, we do have a plan. We do have a goal to be, to be honest, I do have the goal to be the #1 vegan destination in San Diego. And that's just me being, competitive, coming from my basketball background. And so I do have that embedded in me, but I don't know how I'm going to get there. But I know we're going to get there, You
got to have that pie in the sky plan. Otherwise, if you're just like, well, I just want to open up one shop.
Correct.
You'll stay with one shop. Yeah. You're telling the universe, oh, I got it. I'm good. I'm okay now. Like, I've got my one shop.
Correct.
The only thing that could be holding you back is like what other people will perceive of you. You put that out there. They may think you're ego-based. They may think you're well above where you're supposed to be. And that's just resetting the norm. That's just, this is the way I'm going to do things. Yeah. And I don't really care. You're like, we're in our 40s too. I don't really care at this point, like how we get to where we just know that we're going to do something pretty amazing, pretty different. And you better get on board because it's going to change your life.
And I work extremely hard. And I think that gives me a little confidence. And where we're going, for example, we had our first outdoor event, First Friday in Grossmont. So we flirted a few times and said, hey, we're ready. And every time I would say that, the head person from Vegan in San Diego would be like, Todd, are you sure you're ready? This is the biggest event in San Diego. You're going to get hit pretty hard. And so hearing that one time, like I feel like that pushes us to extra prep and work hard. So we had our first event. We were the only vendor that didn't sell out. We had the fastest turnaround when people placed their orders. Instead of 45 minutes, our orders were coming out 5 to 10 minutes. And at the end, we all looked at each other and we were like super proud of ourselves. And to not have any experience in the restaurant industry, none of us, it showed me that, hey, preparation, hard work, and passion is all you need. And so I feel confident in our next steps, just because I know we're going to keep putting that same energy into it.
I love that. Let's talk a little bit about the food, because I've seen some of the food coming out, and it just like that omelet that your mom loves, that looks amazing. Tell us a little bit about the food and like the waffles and all that good stuff.
So, like, again, the universe. I spent 3 years filming for free. In my mind, I thought it was for free, but I'm going through a full course, a full course of seeing how everyone else operates. it's funny, like the first
You're
time.
getting a free education.
Yeah, free education from top chefs from different cities, different countries. And so I remember doing our first meal, and we're doing our first prep for, I think it was just a regular waffle or whatever. And we're working on plating. And so we do the drizzle all cool and nice on there. And a bunch of people were, where'd you learn how to do that? And I said, oh, okay. I didn't even know I knew how to do that, but it's from all those years of filming, And so it's interesting how, like, when you connect these things together, it all happens for you. And so we started off with, I'm not gonna lie, I seen this one company. I know right away, like downtown in particular, everyone says I would not open anything downtown. Fast turnaround, high risk. I don't see it that way. I just see everything that's downtown is the wrong concepts. And so I see this one concept that was very simple, and I think simple is the best way to go nowadays. And so we see this one concept, and I was like, all right, let's do that vegan wise. But instead of what they're doing, let's do waffles. So we had this waffle bowl that we started with. So I went to investors with this waffle bowl, non-commercial waffle bowl, and we put like these salads and all this cool fresh chickpeas and all this cool stuff in there, and it looked gorgeous. We bring it to the investors. They're like, oh, this is good. This is awesome. And I was like, cool, we'll just use this as our foundation, the waffles, and we'll make a bunch of these different cool type of bowls. Didn't work out because we tried to get a commercial waffle bowl and found out it was going to cost $100,000 plus to get something like that made and patented and all that good stuff. And so go back to the drawing board. We still want to do waffles. We want to find something unique. So we find this waffle dog, which you basically take a hot dog, vegan hot dog, and put it in this waffle and wrap it, and sell these hot dogs on the sticks, or waffle dogs on the sticks. And so that was kind of our foundation. And we was like, we'll just do a bunch of waffle stuff. So now we have these classic sweet waffles and savory waffles. We have waffle sandwiches. We have waffle tacos, waffle pizza. Like, there's so much you could play on just with this concept. And so that's how we kind of started the initial, ideal of Spoiled Vegans Cafe. It was kind of built on those foundations. And it's amazing. Like, our first event, we learned every time we did something. Our first event, we have some influencers come out. We do all this hard work. People enjoyed the food. The next day I woke up and I was almost sick to my stomach when I saw the photos and I saw like the presentation. Next week we fixed it. And so that goes back to me doing those years of filming. I understand how important it is to have the front end, which is presentation, good food, and then good customer services. And so, it's just all carried over to what we're doing now. So now we're doing the omelets. We decided to do a full breakfast. I'm not trying to brag, but I know we probably have the best vegan bacon.
I've heard that. Yeah.
That was my sin before I was vegan, that I would just terrorize bacon and cheese, and I hate even thinking about it. But we created a bacon that most people can have, but we do something in the process that changes it. And so, we specialize in breakfast, and our main thing is waffles. Yeah, gluten-free waffles at that.
Gluten-free, even better. I love the whole reps that you're doing, because as an athlete, you just did all these video reps and this educational reps, doing this artwork with the food and the videos, and constantly doing it, but not expecting anything from it.
Yeah,
you're not getting paid from it. So, do you ever see this that you're doing right now, like creating these pop-up shops, as something even bigger down the road?
Oh yeah. I have family in Tennessee. I have family in Mississippi. I have family in Chicago. It's what I learned from Plant Power. So there's a Plant Power in Redlands, and I went there one day and I filmed with the owner for a little bit, and he was telling me how I don't know if there's too much information, but they didn't want them to open that location in that particular area because it didn't have a high demand. That location opened up and right away outsold the other locations. And being here in East Village, downtown East Village, I heard the same thing. Don't do anything down there. How are you going to get people to come? Being the only vegan option, people will come. So many people will come. The seeds have been planted. We got Beyond Meat, Impossible Meat. People are just curious. If you're vegan or not, people are curious to try plant-based food. And so I would say, our 80%, almost maybe 75% of our customers have been non-vegan. And so my goal is to open up and replicate more spoiled vegans in areas that don't have a plant-based option, because I think it's needed. Even if it's 1%, 3%, 1 to 3% of that area that's plant-based, that business would be very successful because it's in an area where there's no other options. And so our future, I do see us replicating what we're doing and creating more.
What about that soul food that like brings the family together, especially if you're talking about down south?
Oh, yeah.
Like, you know, and really what you grew up with, that soul food. Do you have a sweet spot in your heart for that?
Oh yeah. We just been, you know, figuring out like our kitchen space, but we make some of the best chicken and waffles with macaroni and cheese. It is amazing. Our kitchen just does not allow us to do that right now, but we have done it at a few events. And so we do have some very familiar things. You know, down south, Waffle Houses are very popular. And so we do have, you know, some options like that we will be able to present, you know, once we are able to operate on a higher scale.
So let's say that standing on the mountaintop or the soapbox and just yelling like that actually works. Mm-hmm. What would be your message?
Well, I would say my big message is like, don't be afraid. Like, you know, I've seen some young people bring in their families, their parents to Spoiled Vegans Cafe, and you could tell the kids have this big smile on their face, and the parents are just, you know, don't look too happy to be there. And I've told a few already. It's like, oh, you know, they start complaining, what's all this mock meat and da, 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 da. And so I say, hey, just try the food. Like, I don't ask for you to go plant-based. I don't ask for you to change your life. All I'd say is just be open-minded and try the food. And then let's talk after. And so one lady actually shed a tear after trying one of the waffle dogs. And she just was like, I was so afraid to try plant-based food because I'm just so used to eating a certain way. And I feel like, you know, I couldn't do it. And she said, by trying this, I'm not going to tell you I'm going to go vegan, but I feel like I could take a little bit more steps towards it. I actually enjoyed the food. And so our message would be, hey, just try the food, give it a shot. We look at our option as more like some days you want a salad, some days you want, you know, pizza, some days you want plants. And so I want us to be that type of option where people don't feel the pressure and more education opportunity for them to say, hey, I can try this food and it's still delicious. Honestly, I think sometimes better than, you know, the real deal.
Yeah, for sure. So you're a pretty fit dude. And even watching your first video where I think you were like maybe 3 months vegan, like you're so much more fit. And then you do a follow-up one, which I think you just launched like maybe last month or something. And you do this, I don't know, 10-foot box jump. And you can even see like when you're on the treadmill, you're stronger, like you're leaner, you're fit. What is your favorite, like, what's your go-to for, like, fueling the body for those types of workouts or recovering the body? Because the whey protein isn't an option anymore.
Not an option.
I think a lot of us, after seeing the video, want to jump that high.
Yeah, I think it was 25 feet, actually. I was like, dude, you got it. Because BJ was listening to it. I was like, no, you have to see this box jump. It's like high.
The videographer is awesome, man.
And the trampoline was helpful, too, right?
Yeah, definitely. You know, and playing basketball back in the day, you know, I had real bad knees 3 years ago, real bad. Like every time I stood up, you could hear like a popping in my knees, both of my knees. My mom just had knee surgery 2 years ago. She's going to have her other knee replaced. I don't know if it runs in our family, but I'm heading down that same path. When I went vegan, like it went away. Like the popping in my knees, I haven't had no surgery. Like I used to have, my knees used to be swelling all the time from playing basketball so many years. And so it just went away. Like that popping alone is enough for me to say, okay, I'm not eating meat no more. Like something was happening when I ate meat that was causing, you know, my body to still, you know, have these injuries. Now I don't have to work out as much as I used to be honest. I used to work out 5-6 days a week. I think I work out, you know, if I'm lucky, 3 days a week. More, to me, it's more about just maintaining, you know, but it really just broke this mindset of like seeing my uncles, seeing, you know, other men that remind me of myself get to a certain age and then just lose it. No more working out. You know, this is life. I actually thought that was how life's supposed to go. You know, I stopped playing basketball. I get a career and then, hey, I just lose it and, just focus on my kids or on my son. Now I feel like, no, it's not over yet. Like it keeps going. That athletic side of me, that feeling good, that working out, it just keeps going. And so veganism to me has really showed me that there's no end yet. It keeps going. It keeps going.
It opens up so much in your life. So do you pay like particular attention to like, okay, I just did this workout, now I should have this, or you just kind of like when we interviewed Brandon Williams,
Yes.
One Dope Vegan.
He's a monster.
Oh my God, he's amazing.
I can't work out with him. He's too.
Oh my God, the guy is like, I don't want to make him mad.
Yeah.
But he's so sweet that I don't
is.
think you could make him mad.
Right.
But when we asked him about eating, it's just like, oh, I just eat food.
He does.
I just eat
He does.
food. So are you kind of the same way, or do you have kind of your go-tos of what you like to do around your workouts?
The way I met him too is like when I first went vegan. So I picked up the camera for the first time 2 months after I went vegan, and I picked it up because I got asked so many questions. I was like, I'll show you, what I eat, and I'll show you what we have. And so that's how I met Brandon. Like I reached out to a lot of vegans in San Diego, and I was like, hey, can I just meet up with you and interview you? And it was more interviewing them so I could learn. And then I was like, all right, now I'll share with everyone else. And so what I learned from him, what I learned from others is we're all different. And what works for him may not work for me, and just have to find out what, actually works for me. Like Brandon can eat whatever he wants, but he works out 10 times harder than I do, and so I typically stick to pea protein. I used to be pretty religious at first, and now it's just like, hey, whenever I can fit it in. I actually fast a lot now. Which is something I started about 6-7 months ago, where I'll wake up this morning, see I'm drinking this soul tea, I had a ginger shot this morning, and I'll drink a lot of water until I'm ready to eat, maybe around 1-2 o'clock in the day, or even sometimes later. And so that works for me, and I just learned that by just, playing with my body for the last 3 years. And so, I don't know. I feel like, so especially with tofu, everyone's like, oh, don't eat that. This is going to happen to you. And this. So
Death by tofu.
Yeah. And so I reached out to a few bodybuilders that have been vegan for like 10 years. This one guy, he told me, hey, I eat tofu every day, but I can't say that works for you. It works for me. And so that's when I started learning, okay, thank you, man. Thanks for sharing that. I need to figure out what works for me. But I know I could do it with plants. I know I don't need anything else. But what plants work for me?
And I think that's a great message for people. Well, of course, you got to find out what works for you, but also that we're all so willing to share, like,
yes.
Hey, this is what works for us.
Mm-hmm.
Like BJ and I, we know what works for us. We're not attached to it. So if something better works, we'll do that, but we're always playing with stuff. So reaching out to bodybuilding, reaching out to you, reaching out to Brandon, like, and gathering that information.
Right.
Like, as far as I know, everybody has been so open about, like, nobody's hoarding any secrets here.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to find out if eating tofu every day works for you, then eat tofu every day and see if it works for you.
Correct.
You got to be willing to take these risks.
Yes.
And they're pretty low risk situation. When you're talking about high vibrational plant food.
Yeah.
How do people follow you? How do they?
Well, you can always follow me at Turnip Vegan, Turnip like the vegetable, vegan. You can also find me running Spoiled Vegans Cafe page, which is just Spoiled Vegans. But yeah, if you type in Turnip Vegan or Spoiled Vegans, you'll find all of our platforms. I'm in San Diego, looking to expand our cafe to other cities in the near future, but pretty easy to find me. If you ever want to hit me up for any questions or, talk to me about, how you feel, I'm always down for that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Todd. This
Thank
is
you
great.
for having me. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Really grateful.
Yes.